Yeah.
This is not even coming on. Roll call.
Mayor Rich Huber,
Here.
Committeeman Alex Kaiser, did you call him?
No, I need to conference.
Okay, I'll come back to him. Mr. David Barnett, Ms. Marissa Ruggiero, Mr. Aaron Lawfer,
Here.
Mr. Richard Cedarquist, Ms. Julie Tomeo. Here. Mr. Scott Wishna. Here. Vice Chair Sharon Kessel. Here. Chairman Jeff Tiger,
Yes.
and Committeeman Alex Kaiser.
Yep, I'm here.
Great.
Perfect, okay, so you'll be present. So for the record, Mayor, for the record, Mr. Barnett has a personal matter, so he will not be here tonight. And the same thing with Mrs. Ruggiero, so please count them as an excused absence since we had advance notice and we have a quorum and we have enough people for the board. That's great. First thing we have is a resolution. We had Public Service and Gas here a few months ago, was 1-2025S, 24 Brown Avenue, Block 3103, lots 17 and 33. This was for outside storage, a minor site plan. The board reached positive resolution on it. Everyone have a chance to review it? Any questions and concerns? Seeing none, can I entertain a motion to approve?
Second.
Can I have a roll call?
Mr. Wishna. Yes. Vice Chair Kessel.
Yes.
Mayor Huber,
Yes.
Committeeman Kaiser,
Yes.
Mr. Lawfer.
I have to abstain, I wasn't here for that meeting.
Thank you. Mr. Cedarquist? Yes. And Ms. Tomeo?
Yes.
And Jeff Tiger?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Perfect, okay. The next thing, we had Ross Stores. So this is a resolution, the board, at the last meeting, Ross Stores came before us. We approved the change in tenancy and the compactor, not the signs. That will be for a little bit later in the agenda. So there should be a resolution for just that. There were some changes, but can I entertain a motion to adopt the resolution 2025-S?
Motion.
Second.
Roll call?
Mayor Huber?
Yes.
Mr. Lawfer?
Yes.
Committeeman Kaiser?
Yes.
It's working beautiful.
Mr. Cedarquist? Yes. Ms. Tomeo?
Abstain.
Mr. Wishna? Yes. Vice Chair Kessel?
Yes.
And Chair Tiger?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, so now we have application Ross Stores again, so I see council there, but I'm gonna preference a lot of this on the record first. So at the last meeting, we deferred adjudication on the number of signs and the approval of the sign 57 inches off the facade, as well as what would be put on the windows. Since then, Aaron had a lovely meeting with them at the TRC. They had a chance to review it, and I think they came to the determination which they're gonna withdraw their variances for the window signs, and they're gonna stick to the 20% coverage and just adhere to the ordinance. But they would still want the number of signs, which is 4, and if for it to be 57 inches off the facade. We heard testimony on this prior, so I don't think we need to hear testimony again, because the big issue was the windows. Anything, Mr. Disco, to add?
You summarized it properly, and Mr. Laufer represented the subcommittee at the TRC, and I think he
It's his new job, he's doing that all
would
the
be
time.
on board with what you just said.
And you're good with that, Aaron?
I'm good with it.
Perfect. Anything to add on that?
The temporary signs.
Oh, yes, and the temporary signs, yes, and then,
We were seeking for where one was permitted, we're going to match the duration, was just the number of temporary
and
signs.
the temporary signs will go down when the new signs go up.
They'll go down after the time limit to expire. It's like the grand opening, so they have 4 grand opening signs where one is typically permitted
Okay, so
for 30 days. We're asking for 4 for 30 days. That was identified in your planner's report, so that was a relief we were seeking as well.
Mr. Mistretta?
We agree, we support it, as long as it's within the conditions of the timing allowed.
Okay, and that's just secured from a safety standpoint, because we've had a lot of wind, and I don't want them blowing all over the place.
That's correct.
Okay, so seeing that, I don't see any reason, I just want to open up to the public to see if there's any concerns, and then we'll remand it back to the board to see if there's anything is, but I don't think we need anything. Any members of the public wish to speak on the sign portion of Ross Stores? Seeing none, I'm going to close the matter to the public and talk to the board. Mr. Huber, any concerns?
No.
Julie? No. Aaron?
No.
Aaron?
No concerns.
Richard? Mr. Wishner? Okay, so seeing none, let me entertain a motion to approve 4 signs, 57 inches off the facade, and 4 temporary signs for a period of 30 days for the grand opening.
It may be 58 inches off, but
Okay, we'll just go up to 58, okay, it's fine.
Up to
That'll
58, you're saying?
Yeah, that'll be a field change if you feel it's anywhere appropriate. Any questions, Alex? Somebody man, Alex?
No, nope, I'm good.
Okay, so seeing none, can I entertain a motion for the way I outlined it?
So moved in accordance with the chairman's distinctions.
With the only other thing, the conditions in the first resolution run with this as well. You know, that's no CO until the site is completely clear of all other issues, or a bond is posted, or some sort of agreement with the engineer from a standpoint. Also, again, no shared, it's all one parking lot for Aldi versus Ross. There's no designated spots for each.
Correct.
Other than handicapped, obviously.
Correct.
For Aldi. Yes, it's a site-specific, unless Mr. Disco feels there's something that prohibits them from, you know, if it's
They,
landscape.
they were actually incorporated into this, the last one already anyway.
Yes.
But yes.
But again, the board always gives Mr. Disco some latitude if he feels like it's something that they can't do because of weather or whatever.
that's correct. That's what Aldi did at TCO.
But very limited, because we want to make sure this is one shot to get everything complete. So, roll call?
Who seconded it?
I think Mr. Wishner did, didn't he? Oh, no? Who said, I'll second it. Go ahead.
Vice Chair Kessel?
Yes.
Chairman Tiger?
Yes.
Mayor Huber?
Yes.
Committeeman Kaiser?
Alex?
Oh, you broke up there, yes.
Mr. Luffer?
Yes.
Mr. Cedarquist? Yes. And Ms. Mayo, are you abstaining? Great, motion passes.
Okay, so do you want to waive reading and proceed at your own risk?
Yes, please.
Anyone on the board have any concern with that? Now, obviously, I don't think anyone's going to appeal, but it.
Understood.
Possibility, work through everything with the engineer. Okay, goodbye and good luck. The resolution will adopt at the April 10th meeting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so
Have
much.
a good night, everyone.
Take care. Okay, the next application is Bottle King, which is next to Staples, which is 4-25S, 155 US through 22, Block 3703, Lot 2. Minor site plan, bulk variance, lot coverage, parking signs. It's a liquor store. Counsel, before you start, I would like Mr. Disco to give us a little bit of overview.
Sure.
Guide some of the testimony and guide the board what to ask. Yes. And Mr. Mistretta. Mr. Disco, go ahead.
Ross has a change of tenancy approval, Bottle King, excuse me. Bottle King has a change of tenancy approval dated several months ago to take tenancy of the former Sam Ash location next to Staples in that two-tenant. Subsequent to the change of tenancy, they applied for plans, submitted plans for facade changes. Really, basically where the sign hangs on the front of the building, they are bumping that out as a canopy type of facade with some pillars there. There's a generator going to be installed on the west side of the building. At the rear of the building, two pass doors, man doors, pass doors will be installed, and two loading doors, loading bay doors. That's essentially the new changes to the plan, and you have reviews from Michael and myself as far as some site items.
So the use is not an issue.
Use is not an issue.
It's just the variances they're requiring to make changes to the facade, spice up the place type of.
That's correct.
Okay.
It's a technical parking variance because technically, the site is underparked for the floor area of the building. We've documented that that's not an issue, but they're losing a couple spaces in the back to manipulate the placement of the bay doors, and so it's a technical variance for the parking, and that should be.
Because of that.
Because of that.
Okay, that's fair. Mr. Mistretta, anything further before they begin?
Very quickly, very similar to the Ross Store application, they're asking for signage variances, which they will go through. I just want to be clear, my report called out one sign variance that is incorrect, and I'd like to just edit my memo verbally right now, that the total sign area should not exceed 10%. They meet that requirement, so that's not a variance that they're asking for. The other items in our letter are very similar to the previous application. As far as enhancing the site, they're asking for an impervious coverage variance. We asked to see if they could reevaluate the site and find areas where we could turn some existing impervious coverage into green, open space landscaping to help beautify and soften the property, which we think this is a great opportunity to do that. Along with the architectural improvements, and if they did focused on some site improvements to soften up and green the property, those are our main points.
Yeah, we're big on landscaping. Okay, so if you can just give an overview, I think more so is focus on the facade changes and in the back, what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Some landscaping that you're contemplating putting in now that you've heard some feedback.
Yes. So my name is Richard Stewart, and I'm a member of the law firm of Lasser Hockman in Roseland, and I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant Springfield Bottle King LLC. And I think that the introductions that we heard were comprehensive. I'm not going to give another opening remark, but I will have ask our architect to present an overview of the architectural components of the application. So I would like to call Howard Coopersmith. And where would you like the...
You can just put it up here. There's no members of the public for Bottle King. Anyone from Bottle King? No, all right, then you can just put it up facing here.
So right here.
Yeah, that looks nice. That's perfect. Short, sweet overview would be great.
No.
No, you don't have to focus on the inside, just the facade changes. Yeah, the elevation. Yeah, we gotta qualify you.
Qualify him and get sworn in.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Could you please state your name again for the record and spell your last name?
C00, COOPERSMITH.
Counsel, would you like to?
Sure. Mr. Coopersmith, can you just briefly indicate your professional and educational background for the board in terms of your qualifications to appear and testify this evening as an architect?
I have a bachelor in architecture.
Speak in a microphone so we can hear.
Close to your mouth.
Okay, can you hear?
Yeah, now we can.
I have a bachelor in architecture from New Jersey Institute of Technology. I've been an architect for more than 40 years. I've been licensed for more than 30 years, and
And you've testified before boards such
I
as
have.
this, and you've been qualified as an expert in the
Yes,
field
I
of
have.
architecture?
I have.
I would ask that the board recognize Mr. Coopersmith.
Any members of the board have a concern with that?
No.
Mr. Coopersmith, think of that as an ice cream cone, closer.
Gotcha.
Perfect. Go ahead.
Okay. Basically, the existing storefront, the former Sam Ash store, is relatively flat, and it sort of has two components to it. It is the lower portion, as you can see with the rendering pattern, it's actually the existing block of the building, and it has a sort of a Garden State brick face finish on top of it, ironically in the form of a block pattern, which it already is. So our intention was to give the facade a bit of a dynamic change to it. So we were proposing a facade canopy that sits on columns and projects out from the building, but it does not increase any floor area inside the store. It's purely exterior. And it is a sort of a signature style of the Bottle Kings. We've been doing Bottle Kings for about 30, maybe 35 years. And in the last 10 years or so, we've tried to make most of the stores with some signature similar elements. And the elements are a facade that usually has a curving top to it, like this shows, and the facade has a corrugated, galvanized metal finish, and mounted on the facade is a truss that's made out of a tubular aluminum frame, and it's got the signature Bottle King color, which is a teal blue. And that's typically an architectural element that's used in all the stores.
Let me just stop you here. These are part of the original plans? The plans that were submitted?
Correct.
Okay, so they don't have to be marked.
Right. And mounted on that truss is the sign. The sign is typically it's a channel letter, a metal channel letter that has a Bottle King yellow plexiglass face and it's LED illuminated. And that whole canopy structure projects out from the facade, and it is, and we have a whole series of concrete, 30-inch diameter concrete columns that are projected out from the building, and that forms the entire canopy. And that's basically the whole element. In the background of the facade is a stucco finish with reveals at 2 feet on center throughout the whole storefront. Yes.
And this is the standard for Bottle King, nothing, any style. This is not bigger than any other Bottle King that you're doing. Is it standard?
All the elements are the same size. The length of the
Oh, yeah.
is longer
It goes
because
to
we
the
have so
store.
much a much bigger storefront in this
Where
case.
Bottle and King is the same, it's fitted and it's within.
Yes, that's the way we always do it. Yes.
Anything further?
The other element is the storefront glass. Normally between the bays, often that the elements are on the storefront itself. In this case, we have a canopy where it's projected out, and the columns are out from the building. But we created the storefront glass similar to the other storefronts that we've been doing. The only difference here is that for security reasons, rather than have all glass, we've got 2 bays of the glass that have a solid panel in which graphics goes on it. The 3rd row up is actually glass, and then the 4th row is spandrel glass.
So how much of percent, Mr. Disco, how much of the percentage is this for that they're allowed? They're allowed 20%. Are they exceeding 20%?
For the window?
Yes.
I don't, on the color graphic that is sheet 1 on the plan, there's nothing shown to cover the windows.
Yeah. So
I'm not sure.
we have an ordinance that you're only supposed to be 20% of covering the windows of the glass and putting.
Well, this is not, there's only, the only glass is this 3rd row. The rest of it is solid wall,
Solid wall.
yes. With a system on top that looks like a storefront, but it's not actually storefront.
So are those, Mike, are they signs?
No.
No? You're it's fine?
We do it in other Bottle Kings as a
What's being
graphic
put on there?
element.
What's being put on there? Is it advertisement or just?
No, it's usually like a scene of a vineyard.
Oh, okay. That wouldn't require any variances or anything, would it? I mean, it's close call, probably.
Well, first, is it covering a window, or I heard wall in there in that
It's
term?
a solid wall.
Solid wall, okay. When we had Stu Leonard's come, it was determined by our definition, they used a scripture
Yeah.
like a vine.
Yeah.
And we said, that's designating a logo, so count it as a sign is what I would suggest.
So we would have to grant a variance for the window cover.
We've done this in other towns.
I know, I'm not saying, I want the board to be clear on that. From a standpoint, it's not an advertisement, that's the one thing, and it's like I see what you're putting, like, I can see it there, it's like a vineyard
Yes.
type of a look, to give more of a, to beautify the place, as opposed to saying, this beer's on sale for 2 for $8 or something.
Right, yeah, because it's solid wall behind it.
Yes.
Otherwise, you would see just a solid panel there.
Okay, I want to hear what the professionals say, and then the board, but, anything further? From a facade standpoint?
That's really what we're doing on the storefront.
The inside, we're not care, because that doesn't affect.
In the rear,
Anything in the rear with the?
we're not really doing anything architectural other than just kind of altering some of the openings, but it's not really, yes.
Show us, just because that.
We are adding a sign on the side of the building. There is an existing fascia that we are adding another sign. Because when you're coming down, when you're going eastward on 22, you see that side, and there's nothing there to indicate what the business
And I
is.
get that, Mike, that seems consistent with what we would have done, because otherwise you pass. If you don't do it, you'll end up passing, have to make U-turns. So from a safety and a directional standpoint, I think that's where we get.
Yes, otherwise you're relying only on the freestanding sign. Our ordinance permits more than one sign on a corner lot, but it has to be street facing. So in this case, the one-way street, there's no benefit to putting the sign on the Fadum Road side. So they have it on the west side of it for the eastbound traffic. It seems very reasonable. It does require a variance only because the lettering is more than 5 feet high.
Okay, let's pull the board.
Sorry,
We're talking about placing a sign on the side elevation of the building, facing the eastbound traffic on your front here?
yes, it's on A201.
So, passing so Scott.
I got it.
Yeah. Passing the car dealership and everything, and you come up to it, you see it before. All right, we'll go there for, Mr. Huber, any questions?
Not right now.
Julie?
I have a quick question. What's there now? Is it a solid wall there now with a half window? No, currently,
On the front?
on the front.
There's only a storefront entry with glass and doors, and then they have a grill that they keep there when it's not open.
Goes down. Yeah, it's already the door.
It's a solid,
Okay, so
metal grill.
so there's no windows there now?
It's only an entry vestibule window. I wouldn't really say that it's storefront beyond, well, let me go back to the elevation.
Let me take a look at that.
Should be an existing condition one.
A200 shows the existing storefronts.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's just the sliding doors.
So what you're gonna be doing is you're actually gonna be cutting the wall to put in windows.
We are gonna cut the wall to allow for these upper windows. They're not, they're high windows, technically. Because there's 4 rows of glass that we're creating. One of the rows is actually windows.
So the bottom half of that is going to be just the solid wall as it is now?
Solid wall, but it's gonna have
It's gonna have a
storefront
graphic.
elements on it to make it
Right.
look like it's storefront.
Right. Okay. Okay, I didn't realize that it was all wall mount. Okay.
Cool. Committeeman Alex Kaiser? Alex, any questions?
No questions.
Okay.
No questions.
Sharon?
No questions.
Richard? Mr. Wishner? I think,
I don't see the line of sight. I like very limited, I'll call it facade.
Well, when you're coming eastbound, that's the west side of the building. That's the first thing you're gonna see.
Recessed and there's trees blocking the line of sight.
Mike, you saw the site, what do you think that it's beneficial? I mean, I can't.
Well, the applicant obviously feels it's beneficial to identify the property and to give advanced warning. The canopy sign is obviously perpendicular to the traffic, so you have to be on the building to more or less see that.
So I'll ask
I'm
you,
not arguing for it or against it.
I'll ask you for your opinion. If you're driving down there, do you have a chance to miss it because you don't have that sign on the side? I think what Scott's trying to do. Is it a safety, or you think that the big, like Scott said, there's the big pylon sign? Will you be able to make the decision to be able to go into the parking lot if you didn't have that?
The only way I can answer that is Sam Ash survived without it.
Well, maybe not. Maybe.
Sam Ash was there a long time. I'll put it to you that way.
I don't know, the board's gonna have to decide, but if there's no other questions for the witness, let's have the planner come up and justify the variances.
Yes.
I just want the engineer to justify, to come up and talk a little bit about the parking variance, just to justify that.
Yes, so the planner is the engineer. He has
Do both at the same
license in both, and he can do both at the same time.
But please don't go away, because the board may have questions on the sign.
So I call Joseph Sparone.
If there's anything you could do to touch the site distance, as Mr. Wishna said, that would help too.
Yes.
Go ahead, Swearman, or
Want to swear him in?
Raise your right hand. Swear affirm the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Could you state your name again for the record? Please spell your last name.
Joseph Sparone, S-P-A-R-O-N-E. I'm a director with Dynamic Engineering located in Chester, New Jersey.
Counsel, if you'd like to voir dire.
Mr. Sparone, as with Howard, can you please give your educational and professional background in terms of your qualifications to appear this evening as both a planner and an engineer?
Yes, I have a Bachelor of Science, Civil Engineering from Rutgers University. I'm a licensed engineer in the state of New Jersey as well as a licensed planner. I've been working in the field of engineering and planning for 20 plus years, and I have been accepted as at least an engineer in front of this board. It's been a little bit, but in the past.
I don't remember you, but
It's been a while.
but that's fine. Any concerns from the board? No? Okay, we'll accept you as a qualification, but focus on a couple of points that you've heard from the board.
Sure. I mean, I'll touch on the site for the sign to the side. That side, that corner, and that's kind of a reason for one of the variances to the variances. So, to the variances being that you're going to have two signs, one on a side of a building, not technically facing a public street. That side of that corner of the building, though, is visible as you're coming down Route 22 eastbound. You can identify and see that side of the building fairly clearly. And that was the reason why, which kind of leads to the other variance for the sign height, because the letters are stacked. So, instead of having Bottle King stretched out, they actually stacked them up on one top of each other. The letters themselves actually smaller than the front side being 5 feet. I think the side, I'm just going to double check, I think they were like 3 feet, right? I have that right? So the 3 feet stacked, that's what gives you the signage height. So again, it's pushed to the front, it's to the front corner of the building. I agree there is a freestanding sign. Route 22, though, is fairly busy, and having that additional wayfinding to the building, especially coming into the site, I don't think hurts. But it is visible. I actually just drove it down today looking at that same exact thing. Coming down Route 22 eastbound, you're able to see that corner of the building. So it will be visible. In addition to that, we touched on parking briefly. As was mentioned, I mean, the parking is actually pretty straightforward. It's an existing nonconformity. Technically, 266 spaces would be required. 165 exist today. We're reducing that by 3, and we're reducing it by 3 at the rear of the building. The reason being to add additional loading and the ability for the further operation of the Bottle King. Primarily, the one loading dock will be used, the one that's existing there today, but they want the option at one point in the future to be able to add another loading dock if they feel it's necessary, and then actually a drive-in door, so the trucks could actually just drive into the building, like you do a lot of newer warehouses these days. So that's why we're losing the 3 spaces in the rear, but again, they're in the rear. We feel those will be the less used spaces. They're really for employees, overflow parking. Primarily, people are going to park in front of the store. During the holidays, it gets busy. You could probably see them parking in the rear, but that's about it.
Can you give some planning testimony on the variances for the signs, and the columns, and the facade?
Yeah.
Do we need to have this marked or anything, or just?
Oh, actually, yeah, I should have. I mean, I didn't use it, but it's the site improvement plan that was submitted to the board. No
Okay,
changes, same
oh, it's
exact.
no-
It was submitted, okay.
Mike, you got this?
We can't see it, but I assume it's sheet 3.
Sheet 3, yep. Sheet 3, site and a site improvement plan. Yeah, it's the same thing that was submitted, so no changes to it. So I went through we had the signage, or I'm sorry, the parking variance. There was the variance for the number of wall signs being 2. You have 2 uses on the property already, so just adding the sign to it is going to give you the variance for the number of signs. Sign height, 5-foot max is required, 6.8 feet proposed. That's for that side sign. Again, that's due to the stacked Bottle King versus side by side written out. And then the maximum number of facade signs, again, is pretty similar to the other variants as far as not facing a public street, so the sign location, not just the number of signs. As was mentioned, sign area in aggregate, so 10% of, up to 10% of the front facade area is allowed, and this signage is well beneath that. So it will meet the sign area requirement. The variance is just to the quantity breaking up that area and the location of it. And then in addition to that, the number of signs will be reduced. I know, sign pollution is something that the town looks to reduce. So at the end of the day, you're going to have less signs out there. So they won't be spread out across the building and, individual signs. Right now, there's a total of 9. This will reduce it to 6. Only 2 of them being associated with the Bottle King. The other 4 are the existing Staples signs. So again, just 1 Bottle King sign on the front, 1 Bottle King sign on the corner facing the eastbound traffic. And the pylon itself is just going to remain. They're just refacing that. So there's no changes to the pylon. They're going to reface what's there. So there are no changes to the pylon. That will stay. The freestanding sign, I believe you're referring to.
Can you testify a little bit about the vineyard, as he was talking about on the glass,
Yeah,
the wall, whatever you wanted to it, and what the positive and benefits are?
I mean, I see it all but positive, right? And in my opinion, it's not advertising. While they might have it at other stores, when I think Bottle King, I don't think like the vineyard panel, right? It's not like trademarked or anything like that, as far as I know. I think it's just a way of them adding almost like a mural to the front of the building to break up that front facade. Right now you saw it. Sam Ash is literally basically got the door. 2 sliding doors, so it's a pretty empty, plain facade. Plus the signage on top. They're obviously going out of their way with the aesthetics, with the architectural features. I mean, they could have, maybe just showed up and thrown a sign on it, reused the door, and tried to go that route. They're actually going through the effort of putting in glass, at least in that top row, and then making it look like window, at least coming down below that. And the addition of the mural just improves the aesthetic. So, as far as considering it a sign, I don't think it's considered a sign. It's not advertising, but I mean, it is a graphic. So to that extent, I would have to lean to the board on their opinion on that.
Impervious coverage, you're going up, correct? We had talked, we're actually going to look to hold at least at or below the existing coverage, so we'll look to reduce impervious coverage somewhere to make up. The reason for the increase in impervious coverage was simply for a generator on the side of the building. That's right. So we're going to look to cut out some asphalt, add some more greenery to the site. As far as landscaping, we're going to look to maintain and spruce that up as well. Still trying to work with what's there. Obviously there's a minimum amount of parking that they got to keep, but if there's some extra asphalt, there's some sidewalk that doesn't need to be there on the side of the building, we'll have that removed. So we'll be at or at least below. So that variance goes away. Okay. It's an existing nonconformance, but we're not going to improve it. Okay, and then any approval would be subject to a landscaping plan. So wherever you're removing, you and Mr. Disco, I'm sure the board's comfortable with that. You and Mr. Disco will come up with an appropriate landscaping plan, but I'd like to see a decent amount of landscaping to spruce up that area to make it look like.
Yeah, we can work with the board professionals.
You want the front of the building to look very welcoming with the vineyard, as you were saying. The same thing would hold true for landscaping to kind of carry through with that. Does the board agree with that statement?
Mm-hmm. Noted.
Okay, anything further?
Yeah, I was going to say maybe the shopping carts. Do you want them to
Yes,
address?
the shopping carts, yes.
Shopping carts, I did talk with the applicant on that today. So as of now, they have the interior storage for the carts. They're also going to look to add one at the sidewalk along the front of the building in an area that doesn't block pedestrian circulation. So there will be an exterior point to be able to collect carts there as well.
Mike, what do we allow with that? I mean,
So that's what Ally has. They basically have that walled exterior.
that's normal. I mean, I'm less concerned with Aldi. I was concerned, and Alex is on because he had the same concern, that the carts could blow out on Route 22.
They could roll to 22.
With this, the elevation is much
the other
higher.
way.
There's no way this would happen. Agreed?
Right. It's only an aesthetic, so you want to, obviously, I think Springfield would want to not have carts strewn all over throughout the day, only collected at the evening, so.
So this makes sense, does it? Or do we make sure it's inside?
I don't see how you can open a business where you're selling kegs or cases of beer that people aren't bringing the carts to the car. So the reality is the people empty their cart, what do they do with the cart? It's like any other place.
Thing
you
that
know?
Ali does?
Excuse me?
You ever thought of the quarterback thing that Ali does?
Oh, I'm not even familiar with that.
Okay. It was good talking to you, Alex. That's fine. Let's see what, we'll leave that to come up with. I think the board understands you have to have it, but maybe, what? Oh, he's coming.
That's why he.
Okay, give it 1 second until he comes. I give it 1 second until he comes up here, so that way he can vote.
Sure, absolutely. And Joe, you wanted to, you were going to say something else before I interrupted you?
I gotta charge my battery.
I mean, do we want to get into the planning?
Okay, so let the record
criteria, positive,
reflect that
negative? Leave that.
Alex is in person now at 7:07.
That's pretty good timing.
So we'll open up to the board, but I think that you'll have some sort of plan with Mr. Disco to try to make it as, I mean, I'm sure you want it aesthetically pleasing as well.
Absolutely.
So you'll
Right.
have to figure something out.
The idea is to be, a collection point for carts, but at the same time, all the empty spaces really in the parking lot are used for parking. So you could do a remote corral, but, again, you're taking up a parking
Yeah, I
space
don't
for
want
that.
to, I don't think we want a remote corral. Because then that just promotes them to be flowing through the parking lot.
And if we could just have 2 minutes just to get positive, negative criteria in the record.
Correct. So we went through the variances. It's going to be C2 variances is the criteria that we're going to justify these under. So the positive being the purposes of the MLUL would be advanced by deviation from the zoning ordinance requirement, and the benefits of the deviation would substantially outweigh any detriment. Benefits to the community in that it represents better zoning alternative. Negative, variance could be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and will not substantially impair intent purposes of the zone plan and ordinance. First prong being impact on adjacent properties and damage character of neighborhood. Second prong, grounds offered support variance adequately justify board approval. In the sense that the positive criteria, purposes of the MLUL that are advanced, purpose A, B, G, I, and M. If there's questions on those, I'm happy to go more into detail on those. And then as far as advancing the zone, no substantial detriment to the public good or zone plan or zoning ordinance. The use is permitted. It's a retail use. That's actually taking the space of a prior retail use in the highway commercial HC zone. The proposed development complies with bulk requirements except what was the de minimis increase in a previous coverage to which it's now since been eliminated. And then variances for what we feel is appropriate signage to identify the use. And it's in character with the surrounding land use as far as other commercial uses up and down Route 22. In addition, it promotes the goals and objectives of the Township Master Plan as far as taking advantage of redevelopment opportunities along Route 22 and decreasing at least the number of signs. So again, those are all objectives of the Township Master Zoning. So in conclusion, it's consistent with good planning and meets the statutory tests for relief are met, so approval is warranted.
Okay, so let me open it up to the board for some questions. So I want to just preference that I don't, while it's a sign on the glass or the wall, I think since, to my thought, and it's up to you as well, they're not advertising. So I think that what they're doing, the vineyard, I think that's making the building look more aesthetically pleasing, so I think that justifies that as well. As far as the sign on the side, look, I'm indifferent, but if they feel they need it, we want them to be successful, in my opinion. We want them to thrive there, as long as possible, and drive more business to Springfield. So I think that if they think they need it, and Mr. Disco and our planners are comfortable with it, and I know they're stacking the letters to make sure it's in that corner, so you get the sight line. So I think that that's okay, but, Huber?
Yeah, I have to leave, and I apologize. I have another meeting I have to go to.
That's right, I forgot, I'm sorry.
The only thing that I'm really against is giving them permission now to put another loading dock in. I want them to come back to us or the engineers to okay it. You asked for that, am I correct? We asked for another loading dock.
There's 2 loading docks and a drive-in door.
Yeah, but I would be against that.
In what way,
Why? Because I want to know what's going on, because I worked in that building. I know there's 2 or 3 loading docks. I know there's one on the side
2.
and one in the back.
Correct.
Okay. And I don't know, I just feel that they could do with the one in the back, if they need it, to come to Mike, and then we would have to okay it, or they would have to okay it. I just don't like.
Would you be, so we keep it from the board, would you be okay if we the board granted approval, but holding that second loading dock, that if, at some point in time in the next year or two, that they went to the TRC for approval
All right.
with one of the members on the board to make, help make that
I
decision.
mean, to do that. Yes, all right. I will see it.
Comment about one of one of the loading docks. There's a room in the rear of the building
Yeah.
that's 3 feet lower than the rest of the store. It has no access now. It was probably a loading dock years ago with overhead doors. It's a solid wall there. So it's a useless room right now. We're proposing to put in a man door and eventually an overhead door to actually use it like a loading dock, because right now it serves no purpose.
I just want them to come back to someone just to get the approval. I just don't want, I'm not gonna give them a blank thing and say, okay, you can put the loading dock in. That's my opinion.
Okay.
Don't mind.
Mayor, we value your opinion. Julie? What are your thoughts of the mayor's comments?
I don't have an issue with the loading docks. I feel like if they need it to be able to be successful and bring in I will be more concerned with like deliveries and what times those are going to be, rather than the fact that they have 3 loading docks. They have a room that they're saying that is unusable right now and they want to convert it. But we want them to use the space, effectively. So that, my question, if I had any, would be more like, what time do you regularly get deliveries and stuff like that? But
Well, it's on 22, we don't necessarily care, but I understood, if you want the answer, you can pause and.
No, it's not, like I said, it was, if I had any questions, that would be more but I don't have an issue with their loading docks.
Aaron?
Yeah, I don't have an issue with the loading docks either. I mean, there's no residence anywhere near there, so I don't think that's a problem. Route 22's got plenty of traffic as it is. I don't really have any points or any objections at this time.
Sharon?
I think it's an improvement to the site. I actually was just in Staples the other day, and I almost passed it because I forgot exactly where it was. So I think that sign is exactly to your point, and I was very sad to see Sam Ash go, but I think this is a good use of that site.
Did you buy Staples? Did you buy Staples?
I did.
I would agree with Sharon. I've passed that a couple times when you're not paying attention and you know where it is, and I've made that a mistake in the past. Sam Ash, while I never use, I'll probably use Bottle King a little bit more, so would be happy. Only question, is the...
Can you address the loading dock?
Yeah, the...
I have no concerns with the loading dock.
Question on the loading dock. Yeah, I don't think I generally have a concern. Is the 2 loading docks potentially there so that you would leave one truck or one, I forget what they call the back of the truck, leaving there at all the time, and then you have a second one so that another delivery can come, and just to make it that you can take your time, I guess, emptying one of the trucks? Is that the purpose?
It's partly that, it's for efficiency, so, if there's one truck already staging and unloading, they have the ability to bring the other truck in. And then, again, it's 2 different kinds of loading docks, and as the architect was referring to, there's one space that's like 3 foot below, so usually typically a loading dock is up high, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's set up high, so like, a larger box truck can back up to it and you just roll it in and out. The other one was gonna be more of a drive-in door. The reason being, beer deliveries. I mean, have you ever seen those trucks? It's a different kind of truck where they're bringing them out and they're rolling it in. A lot of times they end up rolling them in through the front of the store. So they wanted to be able to do their beer deliveries in the back, do a larger box truck, so basically accommodate both.
Can we say the loading dock, this would be helpful, that all deliveries would be in the back to avoid the front with causing parking issues?
Yes.
That would help us justify the second.
Correct. It would be.
I would, that makes a lot of,
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense to me.
Probably make the mayor more comfortable with giving it for that reason. Plus, we're avoiding trucks sitting in the front, no pun intended, but bottling things up front, type of a thing. So, let's, I think that.
Yeah,
Agree with that?
I would agree with that. I would just say that, yeah, in this scenario, I really don't have a problem with having 2 loading docks. I would have a problem if you for prolonged periods of time if you were leaving a truck and there was, say, residential in back of your complex. But on this complex, there isn't none. So I'm fine with that. I really like your trick that, hey, all deliveries go in the back. And
So our zoning, so be clear that our zoning officer looks at these conditions and goes out and checks on everyone, so.
I just,
Very clear.
I just want to make sure, do we, until that loading dock is installed, do we need to use the front loading dock at all?
Well, I mean, aren't you gonna have both open before you get a CO? I mean, you're gonna need the building department sign off in order to open, so. I'll leave that to Mr. Disco and you guys to figure that out. If, well, he has to be sworn in if that's, wait 1 second. We'll leave that to Mr. Disco if that becomes an issue. He says you need to do for a very, very short period of time to have deliveries in the front until the back is complete. If Mr. Disco feels that's appropriate, I'm sure the board will be comfortable with that. Mr. Disco, you okay with that?
I understand the mission.
Did you want?
Let me just finish the two questions of the board. Richard, any questions?
Yes, as far as your loading docks, I think, I don't have a problem with you having the second loading dock. It's going to be more efficient for your operation. You'll move your stuff in and out quicker. You know, it's a win for everybody on that. And as far, I know what the building looks like. I've been in it. I think your improvements that you're proposing, it's a much better look than it looks now. So I think it's fine.
Mr. Wishner?
So, the columns that are being installed to support the addition to the fascia, are those going to require excavation and footings to be put in the ground?
Yes.
Okay, so one concern I have is the circulation for the site is one way, and you come off Route 22, you have to, if you're trying to get to the Staples and park properly without cutting across the lot, you have to come around the front of that. So during construction, is there a way that that portion of the parking lot can be
Yes.
completely cut off from customers trying to access Staples?
They can certainly manipulate the parking. The Staples is not generating any high parking demand. I'm there all the time. And so if they have to come into the drive aisle a little bit for construction, there's a way to put traffic control devices to accommodate.
So 1 second, Mr. Wishner, that was a very good point. So that's another reason why deliveries can't happen there. Because if you park a truck there for deliveries, like Mr. Wishner said, it has to. So, to be clear, okay, that helps.
The other issue, and kind of similar to that kind of small amount of space between the drive aisle and the front door, I don't know where you're proposing to put the corral, but I don't know how much room you have to play with there. It just may get a little.
We were talking about
You're
that.
gonna generate a lot more traffic than Staples has. So now you're gonna have more people kind of coming around that corner. So I just think that corral needs to be in like the safest place possible. And then
So, Mr. Disco, that's something you'll have to monitor, where the right place for that corral is to give the proper ability that.
Sure.
How width that sidewalk is, so people aren't standing on the.
It sounds like they're going to present a plan that Michael and I will get a chance to put eyes on and.
And you'll be comfortable. Perfect. You good with that, Mr. Wishner?
Yeah, yeah. And then the last comment, I clearly am in the minority here with this side sign. I've been doing signage on retail locations for a very long time. I know this site very well. I just don't know how much bang for the buck you're gonna get. It's the applicant's money, but I would think if there's a way to get a ground monument of some kind for wayfinding, you'd be much better off than what I think is a highly blocked area that's recessed from the road. You've got a sign from Autoland that's blocking that visibility, and, you know, people are driving 40, 50 miles an hour. I don't see that sign as necessary.
So.
40, you'd be lucky if people are only going 40.
Scott, if we board did grant the sign, how would you feel about that we just grant it for this use only? So if they ever do leave, that we can evaluate it again. It's just not grandfathered that, I don't know, whatever comes in that store 30 years from now, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the sign, I'm just
Yeah.
saying.
Okay.
So I don't know that it's gonna really seem like you get what you want. So, that's not my
Well, so then let's,
purview as a board member.
then with that sign, if the board doesn't have a concern, let's do it for this app only, meaning, Mr. Disco and council, if someone comes to use that site in the future, that's not considered part of their, just, oh, let's slap up another sign, they would have to request a variance for that. Can we do that?
It depends on the use and who comes in, because technically that would run with the land. So, it'd be hard to limit it. It would be hard to limit it.
Okay. Supposed to come up with solutions for us. No, it's okay, but I thought that would be a fair thing, because then we can, because I hate when, if we put something there and then someone else comes in there, they want to do it well, and it may not be necessary, who knows? But that's fine, okay. You had one more quick witness?
No, we were going to talk about the loading up, but we're fine.
Okay, so I think that the way we solved with the loading, or I think the board's comfortable, is that no drop-offs in the front. When you have the loading docks complete, that's when it's got to go completely to the back. But now that Mr. Wishner brought up a wonderful point, if you put a truck there with beer being delivered, you will block all traffic for your parking lot to go to you and to go to Staples, and then Staples will hate you, and it'll be a longer problem. So I think that is justification, in my opinion, to have the extra loading dock right away, with no deliveries up front. Great. Any members of the public that wish to speak on this application? Seeing none, I'm going to close it and remand it to the board. Let's kind of discuss, I lost track of the variances. If you want to,
We may have questions.
oh, I'm so sorry, I forgot about you guys. Go ahead.
There was a couple of things that I wrote that I didn't hear addressed yet, so I just want to get them on the record.
Perfect. We'll have to open up to the public again.
There's a transformer on the site, I gave you a picture, it's graffitied up. Love to repaint that. Better yet, if we can landscape in front of it, I'll leave.
I don't think that's a problem. Right. Okay.
We mentioned the shopping cart storage issue, I think that's gonna be resolved in a different way. I'm going backwards here, it's just easier. My number 20 suggested that the plan suggests the curb line is gonna bump out slightly to accommodate the columns. I see that on, there's an architectural plan that depicts that, the site plan doesn't depict that. So I need to know for the record whether we're bumping out into the aisle with.
Provide testimony on that, because does that affect the circulation?
The curb line will need to bump out. The idea being though that there's extra room in that drive aisle to hopefully accommodate that. That's the idea.
Well, I don't like the hopefully. What if it doesn't? How do you figure that out, Mr. Disco?
We would have to show it on the site plan.
The aisle width has, as I recall,
On the back of the parking, if a car stuck out.
let me see if my curb photos have it. Yeah, there's a faded line there, which I presume was a fire line there. The one-way width is adequate, so are we bumping out a foot?
Probably looking at a foot and a half tops.
I think it can be managed that way, but I just wanted to, on the record.
So if you see it a problem, you'll have to deal with it, and if you want to have the fire chief to sign off on it too, that he feels like a fire truck can get through there, that's probably a good idea as well.
Okay, there was a comment about sanitary sewer flow. So again, Springfield's in a difficult position in that we exceed our permitted flow rights to RVSA numerous times a year, and then we get, they used to be called fines, penalties, now they're called excess flow charges. It's a prettier way to.
Don't we have a connection fee that they have to pay for each?
Well, if they don't change the physical sewer connection, that doesn't happen. But what we ask is that the calculation for what their usage is gonna be versus what Sam Ash did. And if it goes up, we wanna mitigate that. This is not a huge generator of sewer flows, but again, if it goes up, goes down, great, the town benefits.
So how would we mitigate that? It would be.
It's a condition that they provide the sewer flows.
Well,
and-
no, I get that, but what if they say it's higher? Are you
Oh, then we do typically, and we did this for Evergreen Theragnostics, if you remember, on Commerce. So we look at the manholes, and we waterproof manholes that are leaking and taking rainwater, or water that inflow comes in through the opening. So there's many ways to do
So
it.
you're comfortable with
Yeah,
mitigating?
we'll provide the calculations. It should be a wash, if anything, no pun intended. It's gonna be retail to retail. So using the DEP requirements, for predicting flows, it's gonna be the same, because we're not increasing floor area.
Yeah, unless there's some sort of water use part of their operation, which we would want to know. There's some potholes in the front. Again, I didn't hear that addressed. We want to obviously fix the potholes and do the restriping.
So the parking lot, as a condition, would have to be complete, he's gonna go through with an inspection with our zoning officer, and it has to be completely safe to make sure no one falls. Front and rear, because you have.
The rear's actually in pretty good shape. The front will be repaired, restriped. That'll be done along with the landscape.
And that'll be,
Talked about.
and that, the good news is, it's, by the time you start this in April, May, it won't be a weather situation. Just keep in mind, I don't know when you're planning on opening, that it's done before, because he won't grant a CO without having these things completed. Good point, thank you for bringing these
Yeah,
up.
the rear is much better condition than the front. I really have no issue with the rear. We both mentioned landscaping. I think we need a little guidance. I mean, I think you have the ability to add street trees along Fadum and maybe along Route 22. And then there's other landscaping opportunities. I know Michael will touch on that. I'll let him.
I think that we should add landscaping wherever it is appropriate, and especially covering the utility box. What does the board? I mean, if you could add, it should be added everywhere possible. They've taken the time and they want a variance to make the facade look better, so they should be concerned with making the facade.
I will say, we looked at it today, and we were talking with the applicant, the opportunities to add landscaping, and looked at different areas with them in preparation for today. They were hesitant on street trees, but as far as the interior landscaping and getting that and replacing, there is a dead tree in the parking lot, getting rid of that.
I think you're hearing the
there.
board wants the street trees, but come up with a plan. If Mr. Disco's not comfortable, Mr. Lawfer will be lovely to join the TRC, and you guys can review it from that standpoint. Street trees along Fadum.
Yep. Yeah, it's an ordinance. Again, you're here for site plan. You don't have to do it, but,
No, I think if we're granting variances to make.
the ordinance also requires sidewalks. I see no need to do that either. There's no sidewalks in here.
Should they pay to the sidewalk fund? Because that's something that the township committee has put upon us.
I don't know if we have a tree fund, yes, but a sidewalk fund, I don't think we have. There'd be no plans on, none of the Fadum Road extent has.
Okay, so then maybe in lieu of that, the trees are more appropriate.
There are some dumpsters that are right now just in the rear parking lot. They're supposed to be enclosed in fencing. So that has to be done in some mechanism. One may be Staples, one may be the applicants, but regardless, we don't want them in the front of the building, which they're not, but they are just strewn, taking up.
If they don't do it.
Yeah. I just want it on the record, we should do this.
Going to be finding them, so that'll be one of the conditions of approval too, that you.
They're amenable. They actually, the landlord already constructed one in the back, so that's actually been done in enclosure. So
Okay.
we'll show that on the plan.
As far as the loading, there's no maximum on loading, there's just a minimum. They've obviously looking for more, so there's no variance associated with more loading bay doors. I'll let Michael touch on EV if parking if he wants, because again, it's not required, you got an existing parking lot, but just so everybody knows, if you put EV in, or if they plan on putting EV in, we should hear it on the record, so. We didn't talk about lighting under the canopy. There are gonna be some under canopy lights, correct?
Correct.
But they're just generally for the walkway area?
I'm sure you'll make sure it's lit enough from a foot to candle.
Yeah. The Sam Ash, the freestanding sign. So right now Staples has one of three, Sam Ash had two of the three. So the question remains, will the Bottle King be using two panels on the freestanding sign? Or one, a la Aldi, where they were gonna basically black one out, they didn't.
They should only need one, especially for giving the sign on the.
Yeah, I didn't hear testimony on it, and there was no freestanding signs, details submitted, so perhaps they can answer that quickly.
So I would imagine you take the one underneath Staples, and the other one would be blacked out, especially if the board's granting this side variance. Side sign variance.
Again, there's three there, 1, 2, 3. I'm sure it could be.
Sure. That's a pretty
Yeah.
large.
Yeah.
cabinets, like, that's a pretty large sign.
We just want direction whether they're proposing to use both panels or not, because it is rather large.
Yeah, I mean, honestly,
I'd love to get rid of the word Staples and put Staples below, and then whatchamacallit, so we kill the height of that, but whatever. So, let's just, can we talk through that?
We actually have a sign,
Detail? Yeah. Okay, I don't think it was submitted.
No, it wasn't, but I can provide it as an exhibit.
Sure.
The idea was to use both panels.
Yeah, I don't know if that's gonna fly with the board, but sure. Let me, do you have like two that we can pass out? One?
You wanna mark that exhibit?
Yeah. One? They don't need both, yeah. I mean, my opinion, before you even testify, that's overkill. I think it's Bottle King. You're a wine place. Discount liquor, beer, that's just really taking advantage, in my opinion. I don't know what the board feels, but I'll just throw it out there. I don't know what testimony you're gonna provide that would make me say that that's needed additionally. Yeah, it's clutter, exactly. Especially now that you're gonna have there's nothing here from a sign standpoint, from a safety thing that says, oh, I gotta pull over and stop to go there, or I'm gonna miss it. So, I mean, to be honest, I'd really love to see Staples move one below. I know we can't do that, but I think you should take the one below Staples and then work through that. Especially because there's only 2 stores here. Does the board agree with me on that?
It's a little jumbled because to your point, it does seem that the Staples cabinet may have been added in another.
Yes.
After the original sign.
Was approved, yeah. But,
Probably fair.
The footings of this thing are not the greatest looking.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, they're painting it on the,
Do some kind of
so they,
stone or retro base or something.
well, I don't think,
Personally, I do not have a problem with the two panels, but.
wow, complete opposite.
Still looks like so.
Are you messing with us?
But, I mean, the other thing that they were looking at, this was the other idea that was discussed today, was combining the panels. So like, would they be able to use the aggregate area and have it be like a Bottle King versus having the discount logo, but the area would still be there so that we get the visibility.
Yeah, you got the visibility from the side. I think it's more of clutter, but Mr. Wishton doesn't agree with me. But
I don't think it's a visibility issue. I think it's a logo that they have on most of their locations. If I could just have a representative of Bottle King.
Yeah, but I'll tell you right now, if it wasn't there, if it was only a 2 pylon, you would have done it with, and just had Bottle King there.
Well,
So-
Andreas, you want to just explain why it's important?
Oh, wait, before he has to be sworn in.
You raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth. You swear the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Can you state your name for the record?
Andres Cortez, Kertese. I'm a representative with Bottle King.
So you know what the issue is. The board is concerned about this second side panel here. Why is this important?
It's just part of our tagline. Bottle King discount wine, liquor, and beer is something that we have in all of our stores. I would say 90% of our pylons. It's just part of our brand.
So what would you have done if there was only one thing? Because like Mr. Wishton did make a good point. I think Staples just said, oh, there's, we'll put it higher and just put it there without anyone knowing from a standpoint. But if there was only that one Bottle King thing, what would you have done?
Well, we would have very small Bottle King letters and try to fit discount wine, liquor, and beer underneath. But the Bottle King would be, I think, very, very small at that point.
You're not going to convince me, but let me hear what the board has to say. Julie?
I don't have a problem with the sign.
You don't? Okay. That's why we have 9 people up here to all agree or disagree. We'll take a vote when it comes to it. Aaron?
I actually don't like that blank sign on the bottom. I think that's,
You'd rather see it filled?
I'd rather see it filled or disappear, one or the other. I think that looks silly, like there's a vacancy somewhere. There isn't.
I would agree with you there, and we would gladly fill that on the other side.
But there's a problem. What I don't like is the contrast in the colors between the Staples sign and the Bottle King sign. I think that might be a little bit of an eyesore. See, with Sam Ash, you had a neutral, dirty white type of color, so that's not really blinding. This might be blinding, those two colors, the red and the teal. I don't know.
Again, the teal and the yellow is.
It's your trademark, I realize that. I'm just trying to think if it's some way we can make that look less everything. You know what I mean?
Want to ask Staples if we can paint it?
Yeah, well.
I'd love to find out if Staples put something on top of what was approved.
But otherwise, yeah, I don't like the blank. I just think that looks like there's a vacancy, which is a negative comment.
Well, we can always tell them to, we can always have the landlord remove it, because they, especially, I don't know what was in the original approval back in the day. If we can find out, and there was only two, to me, I've lived here 20 years, I've only seen 2 stores. There could be other people that there've been there 3 stores. Was it? The whole thing was PC Richards? No. PC Richards and Staples? So there was only 2 stores. Yeah. I mean, we can look and see what the approval is with it, but go ahead, Sharon, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I understand that it is your branding. I definitely understand that. I just think, given Route 22 and the sign clutter, I would prefer it without the discount wine, liquor, and beer. But to Aaron's point, it does look like there's a vacancy with a blank thing there. So I would like the landlord to remove that if we're just gonna have Staples and Bottle King. I'd like that to be removed.
Okay.
I also agree with Aaron and Sharon. I don't like the idea of leaving a blank. That's just, ugh, that would be the worst. I really don't like this sign at all, to be completely honest. I think I'd rather have this thing knocked down than a new generation sign. This is like, 1980s, kind of like standing out there.
Would it be the board's, just throwing this out there, that would we maybe allow the discount wine type of thing if they put a nicer pylon up there?
If there was a nicer pylon, I think that would be more acceptable. If the base, that's just like, that is like old school and just cluttered and ugly is the word, yes.
No, I mean, maybe.
I was trying not to use that word, but I really don't like that. What would be worse would be just leaving a blank sign and blacking it out. I think that was a mistake on the Aldi property. That's not happening. That thing's coming either down or new sign going up.
So, Richard?
I think, looking at the sign, it just looks very dated. It looks like it's been there for about 100 years. I don't have a problem with the 3 panels, but I don't like the fact.
Are you okay with the words,
I don't necessarily have a problem.
Okay. Scott, I think you did not have a problem.
I don't have a problem, I get that this is their branding, I get that this is what they were working with when they negotiated their lease and this application, but hearing what everybody else had to say, would this look a heck of a lot better with a new sign with modern materials, brick or stone or something, that allowed the 2 tenants to get what they already have, not less, even if it meant them getting a variance for the amount of signage. I think that would make a lot, it would make more for a better site for the community.
Yeah.
That's what there is today, which is really a second or third generation utilization of something.
So if the board.
To be one, I would go as far as I would rather see improvement to that sign than say like trees lining Fadum Road.
Yeah, so maybe there's a compromise here. What if the board granted the use tonight but not the pylon sign? We have a meeting April 10th. You come up with some sort of nice, like we just did, if you go look on Morris Avenue, they put a nice little sign pylon, a nice little brick type of a thing. Put light shining at it so people can see it type of a thing. Because to me, I would think we'd be more apt to say, give you full area, like how Mr. Wishner said, but just having a nicer, bring it up to date type of sign.
My only concern is that there are 2 other parties that we have to deal with, and that's Staples and the landlord.
So the idea would be, we grant the use, so you know you can move in. You know you automatically have at least the 1 spot, if that's the case, from the standpoint. We have a meeting April 10th, where we can do the resolution on the same night, so you're not held up by anything. So this resolution gets approved tonight and it's not gonna be adopted till April 10th.
So what you're saying is that this will get approved with just the Bottle King portion on the sign, and if we can come up with a different type of sign?
Bottle King, but we're removing the bottom. We would have to pull the board.
So one of the options is we could either leave just Bottle King and remove the bottom, or if we want to continue with the discount wine, liquor, beer, if we can get the other parties to agree, we can come back and present that.
I'll carry that portion to April 10th, which is 3 weeks from now. It's not too far. It's in person here. And if you can work through an agreement with him before, so you'll basically know before you come to the board, some of the feelings. I'm sure Aaron loves to attend our TRC meetings. You can kind of present to them in advance. And if it's more aesthetically pleasing, I'd be a little bit less on some of the trees. We'd be able to give in on some of that cost to allow the pylon, the brick type of sign. I'm sure Mike can send some pictures of what's been done.
That's a perfect model to
Sure, we'll
model it after.
We'll take a look at that, but
Mars, when
The
you-
general green sign.
General green. Yeah. Is that illuminated? Lights. Yeah. So the board we have to open up to the public, but the board can approve the use right now, like similar to what I just did with Ross Stores, the board did. We'll approve the use, but the sign will be left till April 10th.
and all of the other improvements that we've applied for, that's all going to get left?
No.
That gets approved tonight?
Everything will be approved but the sign.
Except for the sign?
Except the sign.
And in a worst-case scenario,
Come back on the 10th, and you'll come back on the 10th, assuming this is the board, you'll just get Bottle King, and we'll move the bottom. You'll be approved.
all right, because they can't operate without a pylon sign. Just in case we can't get the other parties to agree or whatever. I mean,
But as far as an agreement of cost, I think figure out the cost of the trees and some of that stuff, work with Mr. Disco, and you can kind of balance. I think I've heard from the board that you can kind of balance the two out. I don't know what it costs to do a sign like that, but we did that sign about a year ago, and it looks great. It was a big improvement to that site. And actually, the attorney that represented them is right behind you, too, so she can probably tell you who they used. So that's what we'll do. So will anyone, members of the public, wish to speak on this application? Okay, so seeing none, I'm going to bring it back to the board. So I think the idea is we'll grant whatever variances they need with the exception of just the pylon sign. They'll get the sign on the side of the building, okay, which we'll vote on that. We'll vote on this. I'm just trying to summarize everything. They're going to get the 2 loading docks with the condition of, no deliveries. By that time, they'll also be able to work with Mr. Disco to make sure that the columns aren't going to impede traffic from the standpoint. So if anything has to change, you have that ability on the 10th as well to work through that. What were some of the other variances that you had? Impervious coverage we took away. What else?
Parking, technical.
The parking variance, which the testimony, the benefits outweigh the detriment.
Height of the sign, number of the sign.
The height of the sign, the number of the sign.
What else you have? The 20%.
That the facade, not the facade, the glass. the
Sign
gla-
count, and then the sign height.
And the glass or wall with the vineyard, the board's gonna deem that's a variance, but we think the justification for that outweighs the detriments. Do
And
you
that
agree?
doesn't become advertising at some time in the future?
Yes, so can we run that with that? Are we able to run that with that part of the property? So if anyone comes, so we're not approving it so the resolution will be it's not advertising, we're deeming it as like a facade look. Okay?
Well, what does a vineyard have to do with beer?
Well, it's wine too, so. I don't drink, but it's all good. I just want to know what Diet Coke is served at the plate. No, I'm just kidding. Mr. Wishner, anything further? Richard? Alex? No. Sharon, me? No? No? Okay, so can I entertain a motion?
Mr. Chairman, hold
no,
on, you're
you
going
got
too
more?
fast.
You got more?
One more point, we have a generator, so the normal protocols of when they're gonna test.
Sure, so.
You didn't get to Michael yet, so.
Okay. So with the generator on site, I know they don't need a variance for it, but you have to do work out with Mr. Disco normal hours.
Usually that's a condition, so. I'm
Yes,
just
it's going to be,
pointing
it is a
it.
condition during, 9 to, you don't touch residential, so I'm a little less concerned, but we'll come up with a schedule and you could submit it for approval with the board engineer. Mike?
Mr. Chairman, you've covered every point in my letter, except for there's one that we had for the board to consider. If we're asking for a number of variances, and in lieu, would we want a EV charger installed in the parking lot? leave that up for the board to consider.
Can we bring up the Bottle King guy? Is this something that you were doing, or do you want to, you can decide that between now and April 10th?
Yeah, we can decide that.
Between April 10th? Great. So that solves that problem. Any members of the public, again, wish to speak on this application? Seeing none. Okay, so I think we've summarized it.
I have a question, which just occurred to me.
To us, or
Actually, to anybody who wants to answer it.
I'd rather be Mr. Disco.
Okay,
Or
Mr.
Mr.
Disco.
Or Mr.
Yeah,
Mastretta, so
the
don't-
parking, which is now angled parking, is that the best use, the word, as far as?
Well, with the circulation of the one-way, as
Yeah.
previously discussed, it is the most efficient. Otherwise, you need a 24-foot aisle to back up perpendicular. It's a mix there, I believe, as it is now.
Okay, it is a mix, because I know the Staples side is all angled.
On- Yeah, and then along 22, they're perpendicular.
Yeah, it's a little odd looking too.
Yeah. And on the side, they're perpendicular, and the rear, they're angled. So, I mean, it is what it is.
So not safety, but for spatial purposes, you think that's the best approach?
Well,
There's gonna be more traffic there now.
yeah. I mean, the only alternative would be take the parking spaces that are perpendicular and angle them. You may wind up losing one. Perpendicular is most efficient, because side by side, you don't lose. If you angle them, it may be better or easier to back in and back out, but you may wind up losing one or two.
Do you want to look at that between now and?
Happy to look at that.
Between now and then, they're going to stripe the parking lot, so.
Opine on what they feel, yeah.
Okay.
But, I mean, having been there all the time, I see usually between the freestanding sign and the westerly property line, those cars are there, probably employees are parking.
Yeah.
And so they're not moving all day anyway.
Yeah, yeah,
so.
Yep. Well, no, we can't part of the comments, it's not part of that. Yes. It's empty, we've discussed that. Okay, so, but Bottle King, Counselor, on the record, we're gonna put a, condition that the parking's for the back.
Yes.
Okay, good, and deliveries in the front, only until the loading docks are complete, but you're just gonna end up causing a, no pun intended, a bottleneck up front, because as you heard, the aisle is width. So with that, can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay,
So moved.
we have a roll call?
Committeeman Kaiser?
Yes.
Vice Chair Kessel?
Yes.
Mr. Lawfer?
Yes.
Mr. Cedarquist? Yes. Ms. Tamayo?
Yes.
Mr. Wishna? Yes. And Chair Pryor.
Yes, and to be clear, it's everything but the one front sign that will come back before the board on the 10th. You do not have to notice, am I correct? Anyone here from the public that wish to hear on the signs, one pylon sign, will hear this on the 10th,
April 10th.
April 10th at 6:30. Work with council if you want to try to, it'll be two separate resolutions, just because it'll be two separate votes. But work with council to get the resolution that night, so we can do it that night, if that's the case. But you'll be able to see, by meeting with Mr. Disco and Mr. Mastretta, at like a TRC to kind of review if you come up with a design between now and then, if it's something that's going to work.
And this won't cause a delay, because I am, aware that there are time periods that the landlord has given Bottle King to get these approvals.
Because the approval's not valid until 45 days after the resolution's adopted and put in the newspaper.
So you're saying that you would be able to adopt the resolution on the 10th regardless of whether or not,
We'll do both. We'll do both. So if you come with, that's just that one sign, you'll know that in advance.
so there's no delay?
And council will do it'll be two separate resolutions that you'll have to publish two separate ones. But both will be done at the same time, so it will not delay you,
Okay.
okay?
Yep. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, cool. I think that this was the best possible solution, right, guys? Best possible. We seem to just make double meetings. Okay, the last thing before this board, this is going to be more of a Michael Mastretta presentation to us. This is the consistency review of the Bank of America redevelopment. Now, again, this is not a Bank of America property. It has not been owned by Bank of America for a very long period of time, 2+ years, for the record. About a year ago, this came before the board for an area of need redevelopment. And the board reached the conclusion that it is an area of need redevelopment based upon Mr. Mastretta's testimony that the property has been vacant for a year. The businesses have looked at it and have determined that it wasn't a site for businesses thus far. I know that I spent the last 2 months with our business administrator, and still ongoing discussions with Starbucks on different sites, and this was one that they completely ruled out. I thought it was gonna be a home run of Starbucks going in here, slapping a drive-through and getting a Starbucks there. It wasn't an option. So this site, I know, has been looked for, could we fit a business in there? And so far, the answer is no, so that's part of the discussion. What it comes to now is does this, whatever he's gonna present to us, fit within the is it consistent with the master plan to put what Mr. Mastretta is gonna be there? That'll be the question we have to answer. And at the end, one way or another, our board council will send a letter to the township committee saying, is this consistent or not? So, let's go. Michael, the floor is yours. And after this, you know, we'll hear, I want to get some good dialogue between the board, but I wanted you to take into account, you know, we did try putting businesses there. At least I know for a couple of them, it didn't work.
Sure. All right, thank you. Very quick, some history on the site. Back on October 10th, 2023, the Township Committee adopted a resolution which directed our planning board to prepare a redevelopment study on this site. So this all started with the Township Committee back in October of 2023. January 8th, 2024, I presented the redevelopment study to the board, to this planning board. The planning board adopted the recommendations of that redevelopment study, and it went back in front of the Township Committee, and on April 9th, 2024, the Township Committee adopted the resolution which identified this property as an area in need of redevelopment. On February 11th, 2025, the Township Committee introduced this redevelopment plan via ordinance and referred it to the planning board for a consistency review. And the only thing we're doing tonight is whether or not the property is consistent with the goals and objectives of our master plan. I'm going to touch on some highlights of the development itself, the development proposal. I have handouts that I've asked everybody to share because they're quite large, and there's 30-something sheets per handout, so I just thought I would go through it very quickly. The property's 175 Morris Avenue. It's 0.697 acres. The development proposal is for a 4-story apartment building. It's really a 3-story apartment building over surface parking that is underneath on the ground level. There's a total of 30 total rental family units in the development proposal. 25 of those are what's called market rate units, and there was the inclusionary component of this is the 15% set aside, or the 5 units that would be deed restricted and included within the development to go towards the township's affordable housing obligation.
You're doing 15 versus 20 because this was an overlay that we previously.
That's correct. This project, then we have one more behind it, and that would essentially conclude our 15% set aside. As we move forward with the 4th round plan, it is at least our recommendation, and this isn't just for Springfield Township, but every town that we work in, we've moved to a 20% minimum set aside on every project, whether it's rental or for sale. But that's all 4th round projects moving forward.
What's stopping us from just saying 20% versus 15?
Right now, it's in your ordinance.
We need so many.
There's nothing stopping you as long as the township committee adopts that ordinance. And we are drafting those ordinances because draft ordinances are required to be part of the appendix of the updated 4th round housing element plan that this planning board's gonna hear shortly, it has to be adopted by law no later than June 30th, 2025. And that will absolutely be one of the recommendations township-wide, regardless of it's a for sale or a rental project, a 20% set aside. Some of the key items in this development proposal is there's a minimum 1,500 square foot entry plaza at the intersection of Linden and Morris, so that there's this pedestrian area as you enter. There's a minimum 1,200 square foot community room, and then another 900 square foot community room on the upper levels, along with the 1,580 square foot roof terrace. The bedroom design, bedroom distribution will all be controlled under the UHAC rules, Uniform Housing Control Act rules. They have to comply with UHAC, so that's really something that's not in our territory. It's not even in a township committee's territory. What's the size of the units, how many 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, with respect to the affordable units, are all controlled by the state UHAC regulations. Right now, it's a minimum of 20% have to be 3, a maximum of 20% can be 1, the rest are 2 bedrooms, and again, that only applies to the 5 affordable housing units.
If this was 20%, it would just be 6, 24.
Correct, yeah.
And it would be the same 20% one-bedrooms.
Yeah, they have this still 2020 under the new rules too. As far as off-street parking, it's RSIS, the requirement is that it's RSIS parking, and then they get the state EV model ordinance that can be addressed. The site right now is proposing 57 total off-street parking spaces, whereas they've demonstrated in the calculations that they only need 51. So there are 6 parking spaces over-parked on this concept plan. And again, everything you're looking at tonight, these are all concept plans. I'll go through them very quickly in a second, but they're attached to our redevelopment plan. This board will, should this move forward and this ordinance ultimately adopted, the planning board will receive a full-blown site plan application on this development proposal, and we'll get involved in all the site plan issues, but that's for another evening.
Will you look at if it's over, to make an area where it's designated future parking, but it's approved, so that way if it's needed, it can be
It's already in my recommendation that I sent to the board, and one of my recommendations that I would like to incorporate is that we're all trying to pick up as much impervious coverage as we can and create more green in our town. We have a site that's fully parked. I still think we could get rid of 6 more parking spaces. Know that they're there, they're not disappearing. If the need is demonstrated, they would pave those and they would become real parking spaces. But 6 of those parking spaces, in my opinion, can be banked, should be banked, and we'll see if they need those spaces. I'd rather have the green space, more landscaping and buffer plantings on the site than excess asphalt parking. Now, the reason why we're here tonight is this development proposal, is this ordinance that was introduced, and is this redevelopment plan that has been prepared for our township committee. Our responsibility is to take a look at our master plan documents, look at our goals and objectives, look at our zoning ordinance, and identify whether or not this proposal is consistent with our master plan, our zoning ordinance, and the requirements of our affordable housing obligation. That's why we're here, all right? And I touched upon some of the site plan issues, but I don't want to get too far into those tonight, only because there will be another hearing very detailed about all of that information, but not tonight. Our opinion is, and we did a very, I thought, thorough analysis in the redevelopment plan itself, which everybody has electronically. I'm not sure how everybody, if anybody, printed it out, but at least you had it electronically. On pages 12 through 17 of that redevelopment plan, it goes through a very long discussion of the history of our master plans, this particular property on this particular location of our town within our affordable housing overlay zones along Morris Avenue. And we basically did a pretty thorough analysis of identifying the history of our town. And in our opinion, 1997 master plan, the 2005 master plan, and the 2017 master plan all have one continuous theme about this particular project site and along Morris Avenue. And I'm summarizing, but it goes into 5, 6, 7 pages on this, but essentially, in 2017, 2016, the Township Committee adopted what's called an Affordable Housing Overlay Zone. And they located in certain sections of our township, this area along, and it's all mapped in a redevelopment area, in a redevelopment plan, but this particular site sits squarely within our Affordable Housing Overlay Zone 1, which is one of the overlay areas that the Township Committee was required to adopt and implement during our third round settlement with Fair Share Housing Center. It's a specific requirement. Township Committee, after that settlement agreement was adopted, said, listen, we're generally out of land. We have a couple of these projects that we know, the inclusionary projects that are still under construction in some aspects in our town. But we have this, what's called unmet need mechanism. We have this massive affordable housing obligation, and the Township Committee said, as projects redevelop, if they were to be redeveloped for residential, it wasn't a requirement, to be very clear, but if projects are redeveloped as multifamily housing, this is where we would want them to occur, and this is where we would collect affordable housing unit credits as different areas of our town in the Affordable Housing Overlay Area 1 are located. This project sits squarely within that overlay area. Now, why didn't they just go through the ordinance and submit an ordinance and go by as of right application to the planning board? They chose, and the Township Committee agreed to go through the redevelopment process. So I don't think that you would see the style of architecture, the depth of architecture, building materials. This does exceed that density, and in return, what do we get for it? We get more affordable housing units. We get a much more architecturally interesting building, use of building materials and design, as well as the amenity space that I talked about. So they went the redevelopment plan route. The redevelopment plan has been completed. It's been introduced by our Township Committee, and we're here tonight as a planning board to make a recommendation or advice back to the Township Committee whether it meets and is consistent with our, in my opinion, 1997, 2005, and 2017 master plans.
So Mike, you think it's consistent with master plan?
I think it's
that's the point that you're-
squarely consistent with our master plan, and it looks to advance the town's obligations with respect to affordable housing. At a next meeting, I've already asked the chairman, I need to set up a meeting where I need to talk to our entire board about, I'm gonna come forward with a housing element and fair share plan. That's a document that's required by state law for this planning board to adopt no later than June of this year, June 30th, 2025. We absolutely have to adopt a new housing plan. This is a jumpstart to that. I was getting, because of the timing, this goes a little bit, this technically could come after that, but coming before it only strengthens our position as a township when we adopt that plan.
Mike, Disco, anything? No. Okay, so let's open it to the board, because I'll start with, like, look, I'm not a fan of more apartments. I'll be very clear. We have a lot here. I do think it meets the definition of the master plan. There are other apartments nearby. I do think that the building looks very impressive from the beginning. I just wrestling with the fact of, we have a ton of apartments in Springfield. And does 4 units really get us there? We're finding a site that we can put 10, and so we're not winding up with 3 of these sites to get to that number.
That's what I want considered. Ultimately, from the board's standpoint, we just make recommendations. The governing body has every right to disregard our recommendations, incorporate our recommendations, take some, take none, whatever it is. So, from a standpoint, my thing would be, so I'll open it up for some considerations, but my thing would be, I like the bank parking, so at least we less impervious coverage. I mean, I don't know why, if we're gonna do this, if we wouldn't, 15, maybe the township committee should consider doing 20% set aside to help. If we're so of need of this and we so wanna do this, why won't we just jump to the 20 for the one more? But again, that's the township committee, but we'll put that in our recommendation. My standpoint is I also don't see any recreation on the site other than the outside. Similar to what we did with, what was Wolf's project, the Church Mall? Patriots Way, where they did some sort of recreation off-site. That would be something I'd recommend to the township committee, that they'd figure out a payment in lieu of a standpoint. And the third thing would be, look, I don't get involved with the pilot programs, the planning board doesn't, but, I think we've heard a lot from the public through social media and reaching out, saying, what are these pilot programs doing in the schools, or how much taxes and so forth, so just to review, to evaluate that would be my thoughts. But, Ms. Kessel, we'll go this way.
I completely agree with what you just said. I don't love the project. There are just so many apartments in Springfield already. I do agree with Mr. Mistretta that it does fit within our master plan, however. On balance, I do support it.
Yeah, my vote would be that telling the township committee it is consistent with the master plan, no doubt about that, to be clear. But to consider, maybe 15 to 20, we already talked about the bank parking, some off-site recreation, because there's not recreation here similar to Patriots Way, and, the question of, doing this, adding 4 of these types of buildings to get 16 units or 20 units, are we better off trying to give a better density to someone else on a bigger site, yet that's, we only wind up with 1 type of a thing versus 2? That would be my thing to the township committee, but Alex?
I couldn't disagree more with that, personally. I'll start here. Exceptional building. The design is phenomenal. It would be modern. It's a modern look. I think I would much rather, I think we have a strong mandate from the state to get to our affordable housing number. I agree that I think upping that rate to 20, so we're not doing 15, would be the smart decision. I do have concerns about burdening one side of our school system in our elementary school system that is on that side, and where any development going forward would probably put further burden on that school system. So strongly would recommend some sort of recreation, whatever we may think of down the road. But the idea of doing a higher density project elsewhere versus good, smaller units, to me, is just unfathomable. I would rather have 3 buildings that look like this than one, may I say, ugly garden apartments in some other part of town where we're putting hundreds and hundreds of people rather than 30 units here. That seems counterintuitive to me, and I would much rather see parcels of land slowly develop down our downtown corridor, where we have brand-new buildings that are attracting new individuals to the community, than putting some monstrosity on another side of town where it probably isn't going to be seen. I think we've advanced past that. I think towns in the back in the day would try to do that. I don't think that's where you see up-and-coming communities doing. I think you see up-and-coming communities trying to revitalize their downtown through smaller projects like this that we can be proud of. This, since I've been up here, probably one of the best designs that I've seen. I really like.
The design is stellar. Whoever designed this was a
So that would be my take. I mean, I don't know if we're getting business there. I don't know what retail is coming down the pike, you know? I just don't see it. We have whether you agree with it or not, the courts and now the legislature and the governor have mandated us to get housing crisis. Yes, we have a lot of housing, but clearly it's not enough. We have a housing crisis in America. And if anybody up here is going to say that we don't, well, then I would ask that you look to the presidential election where two candidates ran on housing. We have a crisis. And our legislature and courts mandate it. I think it's a nice project. I think you pass up projects like this, you don't know what's coming down, and when when you're forced to do something, you're probably not going to like the project as much as this. That's my comments for tonight.
I agree with Alex. I would much rather see much smaller projects than one big unit, because you drive around this county, go down Westfield Avenue, go to Westfield, you can't even see what used to be there anymore. Like Garwood's gigantic, and they're looking to do another one in Garwood. Like, one of my friends is on the Garwood planning board. He's like, they don't know what to do, because they don't want to make it into these big block buildings with a ton of people. They have a smaller school system. It's going to stress everything. I do like the look of the building. I think it's, like you said, it was very well planned. He did a good job. He actually was in here a couple of months ago for a variance for his building.
That's right, for his building, yeah.
He did a very, very nice job on that building, too. You know, what Alex says about the retail, I don't see it either. I mean, look, you want to bring people in here, you want to get the percentage you need to get, but I think this building is good, and you probably want to do something on a smaller scale like that with a couple other buildings other than one gigantic building.
Do you think there should be 15 or 20% set aside?
I think you're dead right with 20%.
20%? Yeah, okay. Not up to us, but the recommendations to the governing body. Alex, what did you think on that?
Hey, if we can get 20% in any project going forward, I think it's the right move.
Mr. Wishner?
So, I think I agree with some of what everybody has said, maybe not all of what everybody has said. Springfield is not alone in our ability to have to reach certain housing criteria. In fact, we're one of the majority number of communities in the state that has to do this. So this is happening everywhere. I think we've all seen that. No comment on the design of this. I think we obviously will bring that up when the application comes forward. To Jeff, to your sentiment, like the quantity of units that get added, in my opinion, we should be maximizing the number of low-income units so that we don't have to continue. We have to get to that number. It's a hard number that we have to get to. So however we do that, by minimizing the total that we add, is going to get us faster to that goal. So to what we're here for today, which is, does this meet the criteria? Clearly it does. So.
And 15 versus 20?
I think it's got to be 20. Okay. And in the comment about the school system, I can't remember who made it, like, we're in the process of going through a redistricting because of the units that are planned, some of which have not come online yet. So we are not seeing the impact of that yet. We're going to. And at some point in the future, that may need to be reevaluated again.
Everything's on the Caldwell.
But that's where the opportunities exist.
I don't think we can stress that enough. Serious concerns, and unfortunately, I think that's just where we need and where our township has prioritized developing is on that side of town, just because that's our downtown. But definitely serious
So
concern.
for the master plan, one of the things that we should instruct our planner to do is to look for places other than south of any Morris Avenue area type of thing. Mr. Wishner, were you complete?
Yes.
Julie?
I I agree that he's consistent. I think that the design of the building is beautiful. I definitely think that we should go for the 20% set aside so that we can meet that number. But I think it's a good project. I agree that I'd rather have smaller projects than a gigantic building, so I like it.
I think we don't know what the future holds as far as these plans and court cases and whatnot. Word on the street is that those housing numbers and those requirements may change, will probably change. Also depends on who's gonna be our next governor. I mean, there's at least one that I know of that's saying we have to stop this overcrowding of our suburban towns. So I don't know what's gonna happen, so we just have to look at what we have right now. I think we should go for the 20% as well, because in case it does happen, we have a higher number. But, yeah, and the building does meet the consistency as far as the specifically looking at our plan further. I would not jump to any conclusions on that.
Can I ask why, is it 15 or 20? Is there no
The state now is
higher
20.
number? I mean, is there a reason why it can't be more?
They don't want to ghettoize.
Yes, because then you end up having, I don't want to call it ghetto building, but, you know.
Oh. There's various reasons why people
I think
are.
with this project being only 30, you wouldn't want to go over 20. But if you ended up having 150 units and you give higher density, you may be able to get 26.
Maybe I
27,
misunderstood. Are we talking quantity or percentage?
Well, it would be percentage. So in this case, it's 5 versus 4. Or, so, excuse me.
5 versus 6.
5 versus 6.
It's
5
one
versus
extra
6.
unit.
It's one extra.
And I would lean towards however we can maximize that number.
Yeah, I mean, it's up to the township committee ultimately, but that would be our recommendation. You had one thing in the letter that, can you read that? Because I'm getting old, I can't read.
Mike, you mentioned something about another thing that you wanted to recommend was or at least your report recommended was prohibiting 3-bedroom market rate units. You didn't talk about that though, as far as
I apologize. That was part of my recommendations that we put in there, that we just want to clarify the market rate units, the non-affordables, would be limited to 1 or 2-bedroom market rate units, not having a 3-bedroom market rate.
How many
unit.
2-bedrooms would there be?
Off the top of my head, it's in here, but I don't want to, I don't want to.
1 2-bedroom?
No, I don't want to focus on that because the bedroom distribution may change after they look at the UHAC rules, so I don't want to put them on the spot. They're going to meet UHAC, and 15 versus 20 changes things slightly, so in all fairness to the developer and the applicant, it may change a little bit, so I don't want to put them on the spot.
I think the 2-bedrooms.
What we're saying is 1 and 2-bedroom markets, and then address UHAC. It's as simple as that.
Question, can you provide color? Why wouldn't you want market rate 3-bedroom?
Generally speaking, the affordables will generate, and are designed, and are supposed to generate family, school-age children, and so forth. And that 15-20%, if it's 20 to 6 units, will generate X. By the rest of the building having 1 and 2s, you're looking to try and, you're allowed to control those. You can't control the bedroom distribution on the 20%, or on the affordables, I should say. You can control the bedroom distribution on the markets. So what we're generally have been coached to do or asked to do is keep the markets as producing as few school-age children, all right? And you do it the 1s and the 2s, and some of them have dens, and that's okay. So it's just to have smaller number of larger families in the buildings, that's all. And generally speaking, when you have to do the affordables, right? You have to do that bedroom distribution, but the rest of the building doesn't have to be 3 bedrooms. They're there to support and help pay for and construct the other units, and you generate a population that's gonna, be young and active in our community.
So, Alex, that minimizes the kids in school, as you were just saying. So. Okay. Aaron, you were good? Okay, so unless there's anything more, I think the board is in agreement that it's consistent with the master plan, that there needs to be some sort of recreation. We'll go to the township committee to figure that out, or when it comes to the planning board, we can always add that. That the board recommends that we adjust it from 15 to 20. They go with all recommendations that are in your letter, so in case we've missed anything. I think that was it.
That's all I have.
That's all you have. Mr. Disco, before we
attorney to draft that?
I will remain silent on the 15 to 20.
Okay. So with that,
Is that how you?
okay, so with that, I just need a motion to authorize the board attorney to draft a letter to the township committee.
I think Clara wanted us to do.
No, we don't open it to the public on this. We don't, right, Counselor?
Right, the comment period for this for this type of matter would be at the township committee meeting.
So that the board will authorize the board attorney to draft a letter saying that it is consistent, recreation, 20%, go from 15 to 20%, and that we all felt the building looks nice, awesome, whatever word we want to use in that.
And just to remind everybody, this is a consistency review. Should the township committee adopt the ordinance after the public hearing at the next township committee meeting?
No,
April, it's not the next one, it's actually first week of April, 8th, 6th? 8th, I'm sorry. April 8th is the public hearing on this ordinance and this redevelopment plan. So but should that be adopted on April 8th, the next step in one of the next steps in the process is a full-blown site plan application in front of this board. And then we will get into all of the details, architecture, everything else that you see in those handouts tonight.
So we're going to instruct the board attorney to issue that letter. You have a week or so, but before April 8th, as you heard, committee event. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Let's do a roll call.
Mr. Kaiser?
Yes.
Ms. Tomeo?
Yes.
Mr. Laufer? Yes. Mr. Cedarquist? Yes. Mr. Wishna? Yes. Vice Chair Kessel? Yes. Chair Tiger?
Yes.
Did I miss anybody?
That's everyone. Rich left. Okay, good. So you'll send that letter for us? Perfect. And then Jen can scan it. Okay, so the last thing we have before we open up the public, as Mr. Restrada said, we need to pull up as a board to hear more about this master plan. So what I'd like to do is do a virtual meeting. So our next planning board meeting is the 10th. That's in person. We have 2 or 3 applications. We're not getting away from that. But 2 weeks later, on April 24th, assuming Mr. Restrada is available, we can do it at 6 o'clock. It will be a public meeting that the town can be, but we will take no business other than to hear an update on the master plan, so because we have 2 months left, so we need to get through it and give some feedback. So if that date works for you, no? The 23rd?
24?
Yeah,
No
24th,
good.
23rd? I mean, we have to notice and do everything, but I just want to get it'll be virtual, so anyone can be wherever they need to be. They don't, if people can't be on camera and are just listening on their phones, it's fine too. It's an opportunity to start doing some of that stuff.
I think I could do the 23rd.
Michael?
What's that, a Wednesday?
Yeah. No good?
Can't do the 23rd.
But, I mean, you're not gonna get everyone.
Yeah, that's fine.
But I know I'm not.
We could do the week
You
later.
have to have Michael there.
Yeah, Michael's the only one. What about the week later on the 29th or 30th? I mean, again, it's up to us.
This is virtual.
Yeah, it is gonna be virtual. It is 100% virtual. It has to be a public meeting. We will have to open up for public comment at the end if anyone joins.
5th Tuesday, we have Board of Adjustment on the 29th.
That
And
late?
I have conflict after, yeah.
What about the 30th?
As far as I know, the 30th is
Michael?
Yeah.
Sharon?
I'm
free.
good.
Or
Richard?
I'm good.
Scott? 30th?
I'm good.
You talking about the 30th?
30th of April.
30th is.
Okay, so we'll do either 5:30 or 6, because it's better for 5:30 too early? 5:30? 5:30?
Yeah, it's
Yeah, it's virtual, it's virtual. Again, I will instruct Jen to publish notice on this, but it will only be for master plan only. We're not taking any action. We will open up to the public because it's a public meeting. We're not adopting this at all.
And just so you know what's coming your way, the housing element is like, you're not gonna read this, I'm not gonna hit you with the 100-page document. It's all gonna be graphics and maps, because what we're really talking about as a planning board is where should we rezone parts of our town to address our obligation? So I could send you a 200-page document, or I could send you 5 maps. And pictures and maps. Because what we're really talking about as a board, and this, the planning board has to adopt this plan, committee has to endorse it, is location. So it's all mapping, and I could just move through it a little bit quicker, and you don't have to make a decision that night, but that's what the topic is gonna be.
And for the board's awareness, Michael Mistretta and Mr. Weber and I met with the Board of
of Education for a very high-level overview, made them aware of what's coming down the pike. The Environmental Commission as well, I think they haven't given us feedback, but we need to get that, so it'll be right for us on the 30th. Great.
Absolutely. You're not gonna get it that, you're not gonna get it that night. If I can get it,
Would it be easier if you printed them on this, and then we have, ask Public Works to drop them off at everyone's house, so everyone has the bigger maps? Would that
I
be,
could do it either way.
would that be?
That
One-
would be,
That would be better.
that would be
Preferable
and.
For this thing, why don't we have Jen print them if it's that far enough?
You'll get them electronically and hard copy 11 by 17.
Yeah, so Jen can have,
No later than a week to 10 days before the meeting.
that works out better, because then we're able to see what's in depth. Okay, great.
Okay.
So at this point, I want to open the matter up. Anyone of the public that wishes to speak on any all business before us?
Our Relic, 1 South Derby Road, Springfield, New Jersey. First, I want to thank the team that actually dealt with the redevelopment plan. Not only did it start at the Township Committee with the recommendation, and then go to the Planning Board, and Mr. Mistretta, and Mike Disco, and the Town Administrator, and the developer all worked myself as well, of course, all worked very hard on trying to meet the needs of the town, and tweaking and changing the building and what have you. And the reason why I'm standing here right now, I understand there's April 8th is public comment, but based on all your comments here, I just want to make a statement that I think would be helpful to this idea of the affordable housing and the 20% and trying to reach the needs of the housing in general. Based upon the way the building was structured, in actuality, and taking away the 3-bedroom units, there's actually room to put a few more apartments to meet an affordable housing need that's higher with regard to the building. There are 6 extra parking spaces. So what I'm saying to you is that, no, we don't want a massive building. We only have 30 units. But if we added a few more units to this building, we could kill 2 birds with 1 stone. We could actually help the affordable housing. You get a little bit more density. We have the room for it, and it would actually not affect negatively the project.
You can make it 35, so if they did 20%, you would be 7. Then that's something you should talk to the planner and the township committee on. Because if you're doing a site, and here's my thing, I don't want to say go big or go home, like I said, but if you can fit it there, like Patriots Way, we should have done more, but we kept the density down. I mean, if you can fit that, that's something that you should talk to the township committee. I don't know if it has to come back to us from a consistency standpoint again, but I think you heard the board, we want to get as many as there, and if you have the parking, so I would bring that up to the township.
And since Mr. Mistretta brought up this evening about losing a 3-bedroom market rate one, which was already structured in, I mean, that's why that could become a 1 or a 2. And we're not expanding this building by any great propensity, but we're actually helping the town with their affordable housing. And, you know, it helps the developer. It's across the board.
1 second, Mike, was it just the density thing, you guys had number?
It was a number of, we're trying to keep a little bit of green space on there, fully parked. It's not over parked.
No, but if we
It's,
did,
some of it is
if we
kept
did
green.
whatever green space, they can always contribute trees somewhere else to work through that. I don't know, leave it to you guys.
And we are fully parked, even with adding that. And the original project, just so you know how much tweaking was done, originally the developer wanted 57 units. So we're down to, it's 30, and we're talking about adding a few more units. I think it works.
I think you guys will have to decide. It's
I think
township committee.
we'll talk to the township committee
Decide the density.
and the township business administrator, and then we'll take a look. If that's something that the board would like us to take a look
Well,
at.
I think that we've already made a decision based upon 20% on
Yeah.
30.
Right.
If that's something to consider, it's up to, if the mandate
Understood.
is maximized, then that's something they should
Understood.
discuss. If they feel it has to come back to us, then we have a meeting April 10th.
Yeah.
Okay. If not, so be it.
That was all. It was just a thought that this could help everybody, actually.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any other members of the public that wish to speak on any all business? Seeing none, I'm going to close this to the public and remand it back to the board. So remember, the next meeting's in person on the 10th. I think we have 3 applications as of now, and then virtual on the 30th. Have a motion to adjourn? Okay.
All in favor?
All in favor, aye, aye.